Welcome back. I was listening to some music by Nina Simone and a song came on entitled Why the King of Love is Dead. And this was a song written by a bassist, Gene Taylor, and it touched my heart and I started thinking about the person it was dedicated to, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's a version of Dr. Martin Luther King that we all get acquainted to on his birthdays, a very domesticated person, and his only concern is black children and white children holding hands. But especially close to his assassination on April 4th, 1968, he began to voice different concerns. He was concerned about the crippling poverty that was in the US that disproportionately affected black people. So he was beginning to sound like a panther. Then he was against the Vietnam War. Listen how this sounds like the Panthers. We were taking the black young men who had been crippled by our society and sending them 8,000 miles away to guarantee liberties in Southeast Asia, which they had not found in Southwest Georgia and East Harlem. So he was saying the same things the Panthers saying. Black men shouldn't go out fighting when they're not being treated well in their own country. Dr. Martin Luther King's love for his people, black people, is undeniable. Because, especially in my mind, because he had a choice. Like, he could have gone on and lived a regular life, taken over the church his father pastored, and lived a middle-class life with middle-class black people. Cool beans. But he made a different choice. At 26, he becomes the person to lead the Montgomery boycott. And those who knew him knew that after he won the Nobel Peace Prize, the youngest person at that time to win it, he gave all the money to the movement, but he felt compelled to show that he deserved it because he felt there are so many other members of the movement that deserved it as well, or even more than he did. So, but there's this sense in his life that he's being pulled to his destiny. Even the night before his death, April 3rd, they say he was already in bed in his pajamas and someone called from the church and said, Martin, like, your kind of people are here at the church today. You have to come tonight. And he was reluctant and he went there and he gave the mountaintop speech, his hope that we would enter the promised land. And he also, in that speech, alluded to the fact that to be a preacher is to feel this fire shut up in your bones and this having to do things and not knowing why. So he had that kind of thing going. But the point of these videos is not history. I'm not a historian per se. I'm using it therapeutically. So what are the things I want to highlight about him? Well, when they conducted his autopsy, he was 39 years old and he had the heart of a 60-year-old. And a doctor called Geronimous, in a Times article, said the condition of his heart was due to a condition called weathering. And weathering is like your body's being worn down by systemic injustice, chronic stress, anything that causes chronic stress. Your body is being worn down. So on your exterior, you're looking, oh, you're 39, and black people tend to look young. So you're looking young outside, but on the inside, you're aging rapidly. So then when things happen like a pandemic like COVID, we're the first to die because inside is being worn down. But I think he instinctively knew, that is, MLK instinctively knew that something was going on wrong when he was in America, because when he goes in 1965, he takes a trip to Jamaica and he goes to the university there and he's giving the speech for the graduation. And he says, like, when I'm in Jamaica, he felt like a human being. So he was outside of the stress and strains, the corrosive stress that he was under. So yeah, that's the first point, is the way being in the movement, or not even in the movement, just being in America while black, can result in this kind of weathering of your body, aging rapidly and being susceptible to diseases. The next concern that was brought up after his death was the fact that mental health professionals believe he suffered from depression and anxiety. Some of the proof they have for that is before he was 13 years old, he attempted suicide twice. One of those times was because he blamed himself. He was supposed to stay home with his beloved grandmother, and instead he went to look at a parade. He was a kid. That's what kids do. And so then he tried to jump out of the house from a higher floor to his death, but his life was spared. So, and other things we see is that, especially when he becomes surveilled by the FBI and all the pressures around what he was doing, he reported to have many episodes of depression. And some of his friends even suggested, getting help. And we're clear that everyone knew about this because the FBI, the reason they exposed his infidelity, they believed that by exposing it, again, he would try to kill himself. Yeah, that's how messed up the FBI was. They didn't want to be responsible for killing him. They wanted him to kill himself. Which also brings to the point of his infidelity. I'm not trying to make an excuse for it, but an explanation that sometimes when people are depressed, they will use sex as a way of expressing their depression in a harmful way. They engage in high-risk sex. That's not all people diagnosed with depression. Some of the people actually lose interest in sex, but that was not the case for him. He remained interested. So that could be one explanation, but we still have to hold him accountable for his actions. So what are the key takeaways that I want to present? 1, do not allow the oppressive system to weather your body down. I will not allow it. You have to find a way to be okay on the inside. 2, as a person diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I want more people to realize that you can have these diagnoses and still be cool, still be people who do things well in the world and participate as best as we can. And also, it's to end the stigma, of course. And the third and most important is, a saying goes, charity begins at home. He was all about this peace and nonviolence, and I think the important thing is to remember, first, be loving to yourselves. Second thing, be loving to those who are closest to you inside your home before you think about whether to use violence or non-violence to the people who are oppressing you. He started with non-violence towards his oppressor instead of starting with non-violence towards himself and non-violence towards his loved ones. And infidelity is a form of violence because it's psychological violence. So yeah, that's all I have on that. Thank you for listening.